Psychology Archetypes with Astrology, Case Study, Pramod Part 1. Ascendant, Aries. Pramod's Aries Ascendant makes him fundamentally driven, bold, and action-oriented. Aries brings the fire of initiation to the surface. It's the sign of the doer, the warrior, the one who must begin something to feel alive. Aries ascendants are rarely passive. They engage with the world head-on, often preferring movement over stillness, clarity over ambiguity, and challenge over complacency. However, this isn't the sharp, raw edge of Ashwini. It's Bharani Nakshatra, ruled by Venus, that shapes how this Aries energy expresses itself. Bharani adds a layer of creative containment and transformative weight to Pramod's persona. It makes him less reactive and more process-driven. He isn't just initiating for the sake of action. He's carrying something important, often a responsibility or emotional truth that needs to be brought into form. This brings forward the reformer archetype as the core of Pramod's personality. The reformer is someone who sees what's not working in systems, relationships, or self, and feels compelled to change it. This archetype doesn't seek attention. It seeks improvement. And Bharani in Aries makes that mission deeply personal. Pramod may feel he's here to bear something transformative, whether that's social reform, moral responsibility, or a difficult emotional task. He's not just about charging ahead, he's about enduring what others avoid and seeing it through. Day to day, this shows up as someone who can be both fiercely independent and quietly burdened. He may feel an internal pressure to get things right, not for validation, but because he knows it matters. People may perceive him as strong-willed, but there's often a softness underneath, a desire to protect, to nurture change, or to birth something meaningful from within. This could express through his work, his relationships, or a personal sense of mission. While Aries gives him natural courage and directness, Bharani adds the spiritual lesson of holding steady, of not rushing the process, but allowing transformation to unfold even when it's heavy. Pramod likely doesn't show all he carries. There's an internal furnace here, one that burns quietly and steadily, driving him toward meaningful change. Not for glory, but for truth. In essence, Pramod's Ascendant is the blueprint of someone who initiates reform not from ego, but from responsibility. He brings the fire of Aries and the womb-like endurance of Bharani together, making him a powerful agent of transformation, patiently forging ahead, often with more depth than he lets the world see. Psychology Archetypes with Astrology, Case Study, Pramod Part 2. Fourth house, inner world, emotional security, and roots. Jupiter in Cancer, Pushya Nakshatra. Lord of 9th and 12th houses. Pramod's 4th house, representing his emotional foundation, sense of inner safety and connection to home and family, is greatly amplified by the presence of Jupiter in its sign of exaltation, Cancer. This placement suggests that his core emotional architecture is built on wisdom, care, and a natural instinct to protect, teach, or guide others. Jupiter here brings emotional expansiveness, a nurturing belief system, and a deep moral foundation rooted in compassion. This configuration activates the guardian archetype at the emotional and psychological level. Pramod likely carries a strong inner compass. He knows what feels right emotionally and often becomes a protector of those values. The guardian is the archetype that creates emotional safety for others while maintaining high personal standards of duty and loyalty. In his private world, Pramod is probably the one others turn to for reassurance, structure, or philosophical grounding. Pushya Nakshatra, where Jupiter is placed, further deepens this archetype. Known as one of the most auspicious nakshatras, Pushya is ruled by Saturn and symbolizes nourishment, duty, and emotional maturity. This gives Pramod a refined ability to support others through wisdom, emotional steadiness, and responsible care. He may feel a karmic responsibility toward his home, mother, or family lineage, offering emotional and sometimes spiritual leadership within his domestic environment. The fact that Jupiter is also the lord of his 9th and 12th houses links his inner emotional space, 4th, to spirituality, 12th, and higher beliefs or life philosophy, 9th. This suggests that his emotional peace is inseparable from his moral and spiritual framework. He likely finds comfort in philosophical learning, religious or ethical grounding, or moments of spiritual solitude. His home may be a space where reflection, study, or prayer are natural extensions of daily life. In practice, Pramod might come across as emotionally generous but somewhat private about his vulnerabilities. He likely strives to be strong for others, sometimes even at the cost of tending to his own emotional needs. There is a caretaker's energy here, but with Jupiter's influence, it's not about obligation. It's about a deep, almost sacred belief in the importance of emotional nurturing. The guardian archetype here isn't defensive, it's devotional. Pramod protects what's sacred in his emotional world, and he likely takes great care in how he builds and maintains his physical and emotional home, whether it's in family matters, inner spiritual work, or simply being the calm center for others. His fourth house energy radiates a quiet, wise strength. Ultimately, this placement reveals an inner life rich in belief, integrity, and care. Pramod doesn't just seek comfort, he creates it, shaping his emotional world with intention and wisdom, and offering others a deeply rooted sense of belonging along the way. Psychology Archetypes with Astrology Case Study Pramod Part 3. Fifth House, Creativity, Expression, and Legacy. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury in Leo, Purva Falguni and Magha Nakshatras. Sun rules the 5th house, Saturn rules 10th and 11th, Mercury rules 3rd and 6th. The 5th house reflects one's creative self-expression, romantic inclinations, connection with children, and the joy of bringing something personal into the world. For Pramod, this house is dynamically charged. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury all converge in Leo, amplifying themes of brilliance, leadership, discipline, and intellectual engagement. This convergence makes his creative center both intense and complex, radiating with power and responsibility. The Sun, as the natural ruler of Leo and lord of the 5th house, sits strong in its own domain. This empowers the visionary archetype in Pramod's chart. He possesses a natural flair for expressing ideas that are future-driven and deeply personal. The visionary here is not impulsive but regal, someone who sees potential in ideas, in children, or in creative projects, and wants to shape them into something meaningful and enduring. His self-expression carries moral weight. He doesn't just want to entertain, he wants to inspire. Purva Falguni Nakshatra, where the sun is placed, brings charm, aesthetic sensitivity, and a desire to create from joy and beauty. This softens the leadership tone of Leo, introducing warmth, romance, and a craving for harmonious recognition. Pramod likely thrives when he's able to blend authority with creativity, whether through mentorship, artistic pursuits, or shaping ideas that influence others in subtle, dignified ways. Saturn and Mercury in Magha Nakshatra bring a second archetype into this house, the architect. While the visionary sees what's possible, the architect builds the scaffolding. Saturn adds weight, responsibility, and a legacy mindset to Pramod's creative process. He doesn't take leadership lightly. He may be slow to act, but when he does, it's with the intention of lasting impact. Magha connects him to ancestral wisdom, suggesting that his creative or intellectual pursuits are shaped by tradition, legacy, or a sense of duty to those who came before. Mercury in the mix enhances the intellectual and communicative qualities of this house. It brings in the reformer archetype, particularly in how Pramod thinks and teaches. Mercury gives his ideas a sharp, analytical edge. He may be drawn to refining systems, mentoring the younger generation, or using communication as a tool for social and structural improvement. In daily life, this could look like involvement in teaching, leadership training, or writing with a clear sense of purpose and responsibility. Together, these three planets indicate that Pramod's creativity is serious business. It's not about momentary inspiration, it's about crafting something of value, something enduring. He is likely drawn to projects that combine intellectual structure, social usefulness, and aesthetic or emotional depth. Even in romance or parenting, he may express himself with both warmth, Sun in Purva Falguni, and thoughtful caution, Saturn in Magha. Emotionally, this house may also reveal a tension between the desire to shine and the weight of expectations. With Saturn in play, he might struggle with feeling good enough to express or receive love freely. Yet Mercury ensures he learns through experience, constantly refining his voice and vision. In his most integrated expression, Pramod becomes a creative leader, blending the visionary's heart, the architect's foundation, and the reformer's clarity. His 5th house is not just where joy lives, it's where vision takes root, grows with discipline, and becomes legacy. Psychology Archetypes with Astrology. Case Study, Pramod Part 4. Sixth house, discipline, service, and inner refinement. Moon, Mars, and Rahu in Virgo, Hasta, Chitra, and Uttara Falguni Nakshatras. Moon rules the 4th house. Mars rules the 1st and 8th houses. Rahu acts as co-lord of 11th. The 6th house in astrology governs daily routines, health, conflict, service, and the process of personal refinement through adversity. For Pramod, this house is a major axis of transformation and activity. Moon, Mars, and Rahu all reside here, turning the domain of service and discipline into a crucible of psychological growth and karmic learning. At the center of this activity is Mars, his ascendant lord, placed in Chitra Nakshatra, highlighting the executor archetype. Mars here is methodical, action-oriented, and precision-driven. Chitra brings artistry and craftsmanship to Mars's otherwise aggressive nature, meaning Pramod is likely to channel his fire into well-structured, aesthetically conscious tasks. This is the energy of someone who fights quietly but effectively, through intelligent systems, sharp decisions, and a deep need to build something worthy. He thrives in environments that challenge his skills and push him to refine his actions. Daily work isn't mundane for him. It's where mastery happens. Moon in Hasta Nakshatra, meanwhile, colors his emotional experience of work and service. This awakens the guardian archetype, but in the emotional realm. Paulina is emotionally wired into her routines and sense of usefulness. Hasta, being ruled by the moon, makes her sensitive to cycles, details, and feedback in her environment. She finds emotional stability when she feels competent, helpful, and in control of the practical details of life. However, this placement can also lead to emotional burnout if she over-identifies with being useful or needed at all times. There may be a tendency to worry or overmanage, especially in service roles. Then there's Rahu in Uttara Falguni, introducing the maverick archetype into this already charged house. Rahu is unpredictable, and in Virgo, it amplifies the need to fix, perfect, or analyze, but often in extreme or unconventional ways. Uttara Falguni brings a drive for long-term structure and social contribution. Pramod might find himself caught between a need for order and a restless urge to break systems apart and reinvent them. In daily work, this can show up as innovation in process design, an unconventional approach to health or healing, or a tendency to attract unusual conflicts that push him to rethink everything he thought was efficient or correct. This mix of archetypes, executor, guardian, and maverick, makes the 6th house an intense field of internal tension and refinement. Pramod's work life may feel like a series of tests, each one demanding more clarity, consistency, and intelligent strategy. His health, too, may fluctuate with emotional stress or overwork, making it crucial that he learns when to stop, delegate, and restore. What makes this combination powerful is how it matures over time. He doesn't just work hard, he learns to work smarter. He doesn't just serve others, he transforms himself in the process. Conflicts don't break him, they sharpen him. In his highest form, Pramod becomes a precision healer of systems, someone who repairs, organizes, and improves everything he touches, not through force, but through refined clarity. His 6th house is not about sacrifice, it's about sacred discipline, where the soul evolves through structured devotion to craft, care, and quiet excellence. Psychology Archetypes with Astrology, Case Study, Pramod Part 5. 7th house, relationships, partnerships, and relational mirrors. Venus in Virgo, Chitra Nakshatra. Venus rules the 2nd and 7th houses. The 7th house governs intimate partnerships, both personal and professional, as well as how we relate, mirror, and learn through others. For Pramod, Venus in Virgo shapes this area, bringing a refined, analytical, and at times perfectionistic approach to relationships. Venus, as both the natural and actual ruler of this house, is strong in influence, yet Virgo is the sign of Venus's debilitation, creating a complex and nuanced relational landscape. This configuration activates the reformer archetype in relational dynamics. Pramod approaches partnership with a desire to refine, fix, and improve, not just the other person, but the relationship as a whole. There's a sense that love must make sense, that it should be useful, supportive, and grounded in shared goals or everyday functionality. Romance is approached with careful observation and thoughtful analysis, not whimsical fantasy. With Chitra Nakshatra as the backdrop, ruled by Mars, there's also a hidden fire behind this Venus, a strong desire for beauty, connection, and ideal form. Chitra brings an artistic, architect-like quality, meaning Pramod may be drawn to crafting relationships that are aesthetically, emotionally, or intellectually just right. This adds passion to what would otherwise be a cooler Venus, creating a push-pull between desire and discernment. Because Venus also rules the second house, family values, voice, and resources, Pramod's relationships are tightly linked to his sense of security and self-worth. He may seek partners who reflect his values or challenge him to clarify them. He might place high importance on shared routines, communication style, or financial stability in partnership, subtly evaluating whether these align before opening his emotional vault. This placement also reflects the shadow of the reformer, the tendency to hold back affection until conditions are perfect, or to unconsciously critique the other's imperfections under the guise of helping. Love, for Pramod, may be expressed through practical gestures, acts of service, thoughtful improvements, or showing up in the details. But there may be a learning curve around softening expectations and embracing human flaws in both himself and others. In daily life, this could manifest as relationships that start with admiration and subtle distance, then deepen through trust, shared effort, and demonstrated reliability. Pramod likely values independence and clarity in a partner, and may be wary of overly emotional or chaotic dynamics. Yet beneath the surface, there is a longing to connect deeply, creatively, and respectfully, once he feels the structure is safe. At its most evolved, this placement expresses as a sacred collaborator, someone who builds partnership like a living, evolving work of art. Pramod brings discernment, loyalty, and thoughtful care to relationships. His seventh house isn't just about connection, it's about intentional alignment, where love is expressed not through fantasy, but through design, devotion, and conscious craftsmanship. Psychology Archetypes with Astrology, Case Study, Pramod, 12th house, subconscious, spiritual release, and surrender. Ketu in Pisces, Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Ketu rules the 8th house, co-ruler of Scorpio. The 12th house represents the unseen realms, spirituality, isolation, detachment, hidden fears, dreams, and dissolution of ego. For Pramod, Ketu in Pisces here is a powerful spiritual signature, drawing his energy inward and dissolving worldly attachments in favor of mystical, intuitive, or transcendent experiences. This is the house where karmic threads are unraveled and where inner liberation quietly unfolds. This placement activates the mystic archetype in its purest form. Ketu in the 12th house gives Pramod an instinctive connection to the invisible, a pull towards solitude, introspection, or spiritual retreat. He may often feel that he understands things beyond logic, drawn to experiences that dissolve boundaries between self and the collective. Traditional success may not satisfy him. Instead, peace comes from surrender, detachment, and inner exploration. Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, ruled by Jupiter, intensifies this spiritual dimension. Known for its duality and intensity, it carries themes of inner conflict, transformation, and fierce devotion to truth. This nakshatra often lives between worlds, material and spiritual, light and shadow. For Pramod, this suggests that his subconscious life is rich, intense, and oriented toward higher ideals, but it may also be filled with paradoxes. He may go through periods of disillusionment, sacrifice, or emotional withdrawal, often leading to profound growth. Ketu's rulership of the 8th house reinforces the theme of hidden power, psychological depth, and transformation through letting go. His healing doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. There may be a karmic memory of loss, secrecy, or spiritual abandonment that he now processes in silence, through practices like meditation, dream work, creative solitude, or symbolic ritual. Psychologically, the mystic archetype here requires Pramod to periodically detach from people, identities, or external validations in order to return to his own source. This can manifest as a natural pull towards sacred spaces, spiritual study, or working behind the scenes in roles that serve others without needing attention. He may also be naturally intuitive, even psychic, but hesitant to claim or share those gifts openly. In his shadow, this placement can lead to escapism, avoidance, or an unconscious rejection of worldly responsibility. He might sometimes feel misunderstood or invisible, especially if his deeper truths feel too vast or complex to express. Learning to anchor his inner mysticism in grounded practices will help bridge the gap between vision and embodiment. At his best, Pramod is a spiritual architect, quietly shaping lives, ideas, and healing processes from behind the veil. He doesn't seek credit, but his impact is profound. His 12th house isn't a place of loss. It's a sanctuary where detachment becomes wisdom and surrender becomes strength. He's here to release, purify, and guide others through the terrain of the soul, not through noise, but through presence.